cleanse. Water restores our attention. It quenches our thirst and provides us energy. Whispers in the wall, I've learned to listen. At first they were tiny gusts of wind cutting through the air swiftly. As if these walls could talk, I've learned to listen harder. Those whispers evolved into chants. The gust of winds became swift sweeping movements, each step defined by a historical moment preceding the last. Has history ever been so entangled with the present? Sort of how Du Bois and Washington's idea intertwined. When conversing about the Black community, the most important question becomes, what is our purpose? As art imitates life, life imitates art. Liberate creation from its bondage of decay. Bring it into freedom and glory. The unfathomable becomes fathomable, and finally unfathomable again, a cycle. Freedom is rhythm, pounding feet against the brittle sticks and dirt. I imagine Harriet Tubman and Toussaint Louverture used the sun and wonders of the sky to keep a steady pace. While some wandered in bars, finding no shelter to dwell in, others walked in the steps of those before us, choosing a rhythmic path, a path guided by the infinite expanse of the stars and hum of the earth. Revolutionary vibrations from the Afrobeat evidence the miracles. Now tune your heart to the will of God and allow the melody of the revolution to guide you. The storm is approaching, so lift yourself up. From the cover of darkness, light is revealed, and I would hurry to find shelter from impending raging wind. Draw confidence as you move with grace. From the sound of the revolution, the tools of life are forged. With the stroke of the pen, the clash of the hammer, and the silence of our thoughts, we honor the Creator and our creativity. Deconstructed reality, because this was a reminder of who is controlling the reins. Do you doubt manifestation and inevitability? You haven't even seen what is really possible yet. Remember, you are water. Cry, cleanse, flow. The opposite of poverty is not monetary wealth, but wealth that is gained from the balance of life. Who will have the power? There is no age requirement for revolutionary action. 99 problems and we are still breathing. 99 shots and the people still need a reason. Remember that you are earth and ground yourself in faith and conviction. Ground, build, give. Remember that you are fire. Burn, tame, ignite. Remember that you are air. Let go of theory and exist. Just as the source receives, it also gives. We live life in the moment, peel away the surface, and enjoy the sweet nectar of the fruit of life. As the blood has nourished the poplar trees, at our core, we were born with purpose alone that should inspire us to flow, ignite, decide, give, repeat. Be still, focus, decide.
Shay, I say, thank you all so much. Can you hear me? Y'all see me? Am I still here? Okay, cool. My computer, I got 3 screens up and they're all doing weird things. All right, everyone. Hello, good evening, and thank you all so much for tuning in. A lot of you all may be familiar, but some of you may not. But this is our annual Earth Week celebration, right? And so this event is brought to you by the Tuskegee University Cooperative Extension Program, the Carbon Integrative Sustainability Center, and the College of Agriculture, Environment, and Nutrition Sciences at Tuskegee University. Want to make sure that Mr. Hooks, he's our co-host this evening. You want to come on and say a couple words
Good
before we
evening, everybody.
hop
Excuse me for not being on camera today. I did not make it to get a haircut, so give me a moment. But thank you everybody for showing up and coming out this year to join us in our Earth Week celebration of water. So working on something in the background. Just give me a second. But welcome everybody. Welcome.
Ooey, ooey. Oh yes, and I don't know about you all, but I get really excited. The earth makes me happy first and foremost, but when we're talking about the source of all life, okay, is a whole nother layer to the conversation, right? My background is in agriculture. I graduated from Tuskegee in 2017 with a bachelor's in agriculture business and a minor in international relations. And I went on and got my master's at the United Nations University for Peace and American University, which is where I met Caleb Peterson, who also works for the U.S. Water Alliance and connected us to the beautiful Mara. So how are you today, Mara? Thank you so much for tuning in with us.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, and I look forward to the discussion. And I'll let you finish your introduction, and I'll leave my long-winded spiel for when it's my time.
No, I mean, this is the time. We hopping in. It's 6:10. Whoever got here, got here. Also, just an FYI, this will be recorded. So it'll be edited later, and also uploaded to our YouTube. So if you all have not subscribed to our YouTube, I'll drop that link in the chat. But Maura, let's hop into it. Tell us about who you are, where you come from, and how did you get into water? What is your journey?
Sure, yeah. I'm not gonna lie, it's a complicated story, you guys. But I'm excited to share, and I am happy to have like an open discussion. It doesn't have to be that we have to wait until the Q&A portion. Like if you guys want to drop questions in the chat, or if you have comments or whatever, then that's totally fine. So yeah, again, my name is Mara Jarvis. I was born, raised, and currently reside in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm very proud to be from here. I'm a product of the Philadelphia public school system. I graduated from Drexel University, which is a local private university. It's a PWI, not an HBCU, unfortunately. and yeah, I think I had a really interesting kind of journey into water. And I would say it all kind of starts back in my younger years. I never intended to get into water, but I knew that I wanted to do something that had an impact on the environment. I can't really pinpoint exactly what like spurred that interest in me, but I just, for as long as I can remember, I was always yelling at my mom about recycling water bottles. And I was the president of my ecology club in high school. And I went to our like citywide science fair for a project about aquatic pollution. And I had these 2 water tanks. One was my control and one was my experiment. I had one fish tank that had like all these aquatic plants. We went like to the pet store and we got like plants that survive in water, and one I kept pristine, and the other one I put a whole bunch of crap in it, and the plants died and they looked awful, and I was like, see, this is what we're doing for the environment, I don't know. I just felt really passionate about it. And that manifested in a lot of ways in school and just in my personal interests. And even with all of that sort of history, I feel the narrative that women or Black women or people who weren't good at math or science weren't like supposed to end up in environmental careers. That was perpetuated on me, I feel. And for some reason, I grew up just thinking that, like, because I wasn't the best math or science student, that ultimately I wouldn't be able to like actually find a career in the environmental field, which, like, knowing what I know today is absolutely completely wrong. And if anybody thinks that, then like that's absolutely not the truth. And so, yeah, I mean, back in the day, it was a little bit different. So with that being said, even though I had all the passion in the world and all the desire to be in that field, I sort of like took myself out of, that realm. And I said, okay, let me think realistically about something that I could do that's not in environmental studies or environmental science. And I hate kind of telling this part of the story sometimes because it just sounds so crazy to me nowadays. But I said, if I can't do environmental studies, then I'll go into fashion. It is absurd, y'all. And, but yeah, I don't know, it was an interest of mine, and I did like working in like the creative arts space. So that was the direction that I took. So I entered my freshman year at college as a design and merchandising student. And that's basically like a fashion merchandising program. And what I found interesting in my time at Drexel is that the first year, I feel like if you go to a normal university, then your first year is kind of like your prerequisites and your general education classes. But when you are in like the arts and design school at least my university, they have all of the design students in the same cohort working in the same classes in their first year, and it's all like design classes. So I have a pretty strong foundation in the fine arts. I took classes in painting, drawing, design, computer imaging, that sort of thing. And I find it important to mention that because it comes up a lot in my career today, surprisingly. And I'm really fortunate for my background in like that creative space. However, when it got to the time to actually take the fashion classes, it was kind of a disaster. I was in class with the fashion girlies, the ones who read magazines and watch runway shows, and all of our projects in class, like they were talking about skirts and like, whatever. And meanwhile, I'm like trying to save the world. And I'm like, how can we make fashion more sustainable? And at the time, that was not the direction of the program. They said, honey, if it's made, it's not sustainable. This is not the program for you if you if you want things to be sustainable. And I just thought that was absurd. Looking back now, I've connected with staff in that program, and like 10 years later now, thankfully, there's a lot more of like a sustainability component in that particular program, which I'm happy about, but it wasn't there when I was at that school. So I'm kind of glad that I was discouraged in that way, because then I found where I really needed to be. And so I don't know how much you guys know about Drexel. It's kind of far, I guess, from you all, but we have a program there where you can create your own major. And it's really for students where, like, if your academic goals can't be achieved by a single traditional major, then it's really for people that are seeking like an interdisciplinary approach to their studies. So I ended up creating my own major called Sustainable Product Development. I took classes in environmental studies and sustainability, but also product design and communications and business. And so I did a lot of stuff, but really at the core of what I was hoping to do back then, I was really interested in the idea of products, the things that we buy and use, product life cycles, and product supply chains, and the social and environmental impacts that they have in the world. You know, the clothes that we buy, our phones, all of the components of that, the labor associated with that, they all have an environmental cost. You know, there are human rights injustices that are happening every day that are associated with the clothes that we buy or the phones that we use, as well as, you know, the toll that it takes on the environment. So that was something that I was really interested in college. And it wasn't just about telling people, you know, do you know where your stuff comes from or how it's made? But I really was interested in the idea of communication and like how you develop messages that resonate with people, so that it's not just like you're walking up to somebody and saying, did you know that slave labor still exists and that's probably how your clothes were made? You know, like that's honestly like quite depressing. And there are a lot of topics around like the environment where you could very easily give people the doom and gloom. You know, climate change is one of those things where it's really hard to talk about it in like an inspiring and action-driven way. A lot of people really get sad or upset or angry when you talk about things like climate change. So what I was interested in is not just making sure that people knew about what was going on in the environment and everything, but also that I had an understanding of like how to actually spread that message, so that instead of people feeling down about it, that they felt like they had a role to play in changing the situation. And so that's where like the communications comes in and that sort of thing. And so again, another thing about Drexel University is that the one thing I feel we're most known for is the co-op program. That stands for cooperative education. It's basically like a work opportunity for students, and it's built into our curriculum. So while I was studying there, we have a schedule where for half the year you're a student taking classes, and the other half of the year you are working full-time. So you stop taking classes and you just work full-time. So I had 3 of those opportunities. My first co-op, I worked for a very small zero waste like waste management consulting firm. And then my second co-op, I went abroad. I worked for Thomson Reuters, which is a media firm. And I lived in Hong Kong for 6 months. And they were actually planning an event that would bring different professionals together to talk about the injustices that happen in product supply chains. And since a lot of them are in Asia, it was a very relevant conversation to happen there. And then my last co-op I did with the Philadelphia Water Department. It's all starting to come together now. And I wasn't seeking a job with the water department, but I did see, we had like a jobs database. That's how most of the students get their jobs for their co-op. And I saw that they were looking for an intern essentially that was going to do environmental communications, working in the public affairs department of the water, of our water utility, and doing community engagement around our green stormwater infrastructure program. So that means creating green spaces all over the city that would manage stormwater and help protect our waterways. I'm happy to elaborate on that if anybody wants to hear more about it, but it's kind of a long and boring explanation. But either way, it was communication about a sustainability program, and I thought that that really blended together a lot of the things that I was interested in. And it ended up being a really amazing experience. I loved working there. I wasn't expecting to work in the water field, but I found a home there. I feel like, you know, the people that I worked with were really amazing. And I feel it's quite rare to start your career in like the ideal work environment. You know, it was very difficult to think about leaving there because, you know, I got to serve my community. I got to be a part of environmental education. And yeah, it was just like a really rewarding job. Something notable about my time there is that in addition to doing the community engagement, we had a unique partnership with an organization called Mural Arts Philadelphia. I don't know how much you guys know about the city of Philadelphia, but we have the largest public art program in the entire country, and that's run by Mural Arts. And so if you ever visit Philly and you just drive around, you'll see that there are like thousands of murals on walls, on the side of houses, and on buildings all over the place. And so art is really a part of the fabric of our culture in Philadelphia. So I thought it was really cool that our water department was partnering with like our mural arts organization and using art as a way to communicate with people and bring the community into projects and let them be a part of beautifying their rec center, which is also getting a rain garden and that kind of thing. So I was really inspired by that. We did a lot of artist partnerships and bringing artists into that conversation so that we could connect more with the community. And yeah, I was really fascinated by that. And I felt like it really connected to my original foundation of, understanding the arts from my first year in school. And after 7.5 years working at the water department, I honestly could have stayed there forever, but I got poached a little bit. And the U.S. Water Alliance approached me about an opportunity to do community engagement, but on a national scale. And so I was really sad to leave my job because I loved working in my city. I know my city, so it was just like very different to go from doing work where you're very familiar with your environment, like you can connect with anybody. Like anytime I had a community meeting, there was somebody who went to the same high school or we grew up in the same neighborhood or something like that. So it's very easy to connect with people. Whereas in my new position, we worked with communities all over the country. And a lot of times they were small and rural. The reason why they asked me to do this particular job is because we received funding from EPA to help communities with failing infrastructure all over the country. And that's quite common actually in the United States, which like people are surprised to hear that, but there are a lot of communities where they're not served by good infrastructure or any at all. I've seen communities where some folks don't even have plumbing in their homes, or they turn on their tap and the water is not safe to drink. So it was a very different experience for me getting to learn about all these other places where I'm from. I feel we had a lot of resources. Our water department isn't perfect, but definitely we had a lot to work with. And then to go to places where, they only had one person working on staff, or, they didn't have money to do art partnerships or anything like that, so it's a very different experience for me. And I learned a lot during that time. But I recently actually transitioned to a different team in my organization. And now I'm actually doing arts and culture work for this nonprofit called the U.S. Water Alliance. And it's been really interesting. We're working on some projects where we're going to work with community organizations and water utilities across the country and help them build up like community-oriented artist programs. And I'm excited for that. We're working on some storytelling and that sort of thing. So I feel that's in a nutshell what I was going to say anyway. But yeah, I feel like we still have a lot of questions to go through. So
no, we do, but I really appreciate that because I did not know all of that. Kayla just told me that you were from Philly, and like I watch Abbott Elementary, so I have this love for Philly, and just like Quinta Brunson and just the art especially. I had the opportunity. I came to Philly one time, maybe 2 years ago, for the Black Farmers and Urban Growers Symposium.
Okay.
I don't know if you happened to be around there when that happened, but there was this huge concert at the One Art. It was like a Jamaican restaurant in the front and then a concert venue in the back, but it was also an urban farm, and they had a horse and a peacock and a flipped school bus, like just everything about urban agriculture, whatever I thought I knew coming from Chicago. It totally blew my mind to see it happening in Philly in that way. So I can only imagine. And I did not know that either about the arts. So I'm happy we opened up with a little bit of art and a short, because, obviously for us and for our community, art, we speak to that and it speaks back to us, right? But you kind of just started touching on what I want to move towards next. Which is like administration, right? New policies, some changes and things like that. So Before we get into how you all are responding to, you know, the pressures from this new administration or whatever, I'm interested to know, or if you could just kind of level the field for folks in terms of like water 101, right? Like water as a common good, water as a human right. Like just give us some things that we should know about water and why some of the executive orders that Trump may or may not be trying to get passed can be so tumultuous to everybody, right? Because Tuskegee is a rural community, and our mandate is to serve you know, rural communities like it all throughout Macon County, which is the county that we sit in. And then Macon County is a part of a broader region called the Black Belt, right? So we have all of these different rural communities, but we also have Atlanta and Houston and Mobile. So there are, in Birmingham. So we still have, you know, cities and metropolitan areas, but it's all still Black people dealing with issues with water, right? So whether we're in urban spaces or city spaces, there are certain things that kind of translate across the board when it comes to water. So could you just touch on a couple of those to give us a grounding?
Yeah, sure. Water 101 is like such a hard thing to do. But I will say this, like in the United States, like I said earlier, you'd just be surprised about the state of water infrastructure in this country. I suppose to start off, I'll say that how water is managed is different everywhere. There's not really a standard, and that's really hard. And I guess to elaborate on that, I think that I can't remember the exact number right now, but I think 3 times. So I think there are about 50,000. I want to make sure I get the numbers right. I'm not going to say the numbers. What I do know is, think about utilities. Utilities are companies, departments, businesses that provide your power, your electric, gas, and water. Okay, those are utilities. Power, like electric and gas utilities, I think there are, again, I don't want to go into the numbers, but there's a certain number of those type of utilities that serve the entire country. It's in the tens of thousands. However, when you talk about water utilities, there are 3 times more water utilities than like electric and gas. And I don't know if that really means anything to you guys, but if you can understand, like, serving the same amount of people, there are 3 times the amount of organizations that are responsible to do some type of water management. And so that means that's more opportunity for silos, that's more opportunity for less standardization, and just for people to do things totally differently, and for customers to get a totally different experience. And so, and when you think about the numbers of water utilities, it's like that because in Philadelphia, we're very lucky. We live in a big city. We have what's called an integrated water utility. That means that they provide our drinking water, they provide our wastewater services, which is like when you flush the toilet, when you take a shower, where that dirty water goes, they take care of that as well. And then our stormwater as well. So like, it's actually quite rare in this country that all of those services are provided within one water utility. Now, if you live in a rural area or if you live in a smaller town or something like that, you might have 2 different water utilities, one that only does drinking water. You might pay 2 different water bills because you're paying your drinking water bill and then you're paying your wastewater, your sewage bill. That's quite common. And so those are 2 different organizations that are serving the same population sometimes, but the customer's having 2 different experiences. And it's like you have a problem with one thing and you don't know who to call. Like it can be a lot. And so anyway, so I'm just trying to impress upon you guys like how complex the system is and how you know, I think generally speaking, people say all water everywhere is the same, you know, like all water is recycled. We're drinking the same water that the dinosaurs drank. That's all true. However, or that part is true, but all water is not equal, you know, because different organizations are held to different standards. They have different resources, and primarily water utilities are not funded by the federal government. They are funded by customers. So if you have a large customer base, like Philadelphia, we have about 1.5 million people living here, paying into a system to provide water service. That's way different than living in a small town or rural community, and they need upgrades every year. You know, they're trying to serve more people, but they don't have the money to do that. And so I think a lot of people think, oh, well, why isn't the government helping or something like that? It's, you know, it's really quite rare that a water utility would get money from the government. And so a lot of them are struggling. And so it's a really big problem that I think a lot of people don't realize, that, you know, your infrastructure can vary greatly depending on where you live. And I think what is so damaging about a change in administration is that the last administration under Biden, they passed what is called a historic infrastructure bill that put more money into the system that, you know, utilities can take advantage of. It's very complicated. It doesn't mean that they automatically get the money, but there was an investment made in infrastructure in this country. And I think because the language around that bill is rooted in equity, it's rooted in, you know, providing opportunity to communities that had been overlooked and neglected and that sort of thing, then I think there was a really scary point in time, like right after the inauguration, where it looked like, you know, we might lose our funding to help those communities, even though we're just trying to help people get clean water. Like it's not a matter of, you know, we need to help these specific people. It's like everybody deserves to have clean water. And so it's strange when, like, your ability to provide that is dictated by who the president is. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot that I could say there, but I'm just going to leave it there. And maybe if you guys have other questions, then we can move on to that.
Definitely. I have one more question for you, and then I'm gonna open it up for you to either go straight into the One Water Summit, or we can have the Q&A early, and then we can kind of separate it out. But I mean, you touched on a lot of things, right? Because the world of water, it wasn't until like literally me and Kayla, our worlds like collided, because my world was agriculture, but her world was water. And it wasn't until that relationship with her that I began to understand, like, oh my God, what is agriculture without water? Like, how, if we don't have water, like there are so many things that we can't do, and we have to think about, like, you know, all of the innovation that's necessary. And one of the statistics that I learned that really changed my life and got me, like, I carry my reusable water bottle everywhere, was when I learned that 97% of all water on Earth is frozen. Of the 3% that is not frozen, only like 0.5% is fresh water. So that means no. Yeah. So that means, like, of that 3% that's left, most of that is salt water, and only this little bit of piece is the fresh water that make up our lakes, streams, ponds, and stuff like that we're used to, like, engaging as drinking water. So when I understood that, it totally changed my world. And so I'm wondering for you, and I know I can only imagine what it's like in Philly, because I know what it's like, you know, in Chicago and Atlanta and Alabama. But as climate becomes more of an issue, how can people take water security into their own hands? Are there any specific policies or approaches that you would recommend? Should people just join the U.S. Water Alliance, and then you can help them do all of that? Like, what are some things that people could do to feel more water secure?
trying to think of something like on a very individual level, although it's an extremely collective thing.
Oh, we believe in community.
But
We believe in
yeah.
community.
Yeah, I would say that, well, I mean, something that I have seen very recently is just that there seems to be, with this administration, like a disregard for protecting certain water sources. And obviously, you've mentioned like how detrimental it is, like to have access to fresh water for our drinking water sources. So I would say like just keeping an eye on legislation and reaching out to representatives about their support or not about, you know, policies that are protecting fresh water. I think it depends on where you live, because I mean, again, in Philadelphia, like we are in abundance here. You know, like we're definitely not going to run out of water anytime soon. It's in all over the world, it's usually a situation of not enough water or too much water. And so I feel like we're more in the too much bucket. But honestly, like if we're talking about out west, like Colorado, California, Nevada, like they're in a totally different situation where it's like, it's not even just about having the body of water. It's like that those states have to share like the capacity of their water source. And in addition to that, so there's like a political thing there, but also there's like an environmental or I don't know if environmental is the right word, but there's like a physical barrier to providing water across state lines, which is like something that, again, I'm not an expert on this, but I have heard that part of the water insecurity issues over there is the fact that there are like I think 5 main lines that cross from Colorado to California, and 3 of those lines, like that provide drinking water to California, are also, they cross like fault lines, so they are very vulnerable to earthquakes. And that like shocked me to my core, because it's not even like, you know, okay, we're having conversations between states about like, okay, who gets this much water and that much water, but we're talking about like the infrastructure of it all. It's not even about us shaking our hands and saying, okay, we're going to send you this much water. It's about, oh, if we're not prepared for an emergency, or if we're not thinking about, you know, our infrastructure and making those investments, then that could be a huge risk for just water access, you know? So that's like one side of the conversation. Also, I think in your notes, you had mentioned something about like privatization of water, which is another really big issue. And I think, you know, just from my limited knowledge about it, I mean, there's many definitions of privatization of water, but I do feel like the commercialization of water is a really big issue. And in the future, we are going to see a lot of where people talk about it already. We're going to see wars over water because private companies want to own drinking water sources, and they should not have the right, in my opinion, to something that we should all be entitled to just as humans, to be able to go to a drinking water source and take it and put it in a bottle and sell it to us. That is wrong to me. But unfortunately, it's happening. And it has happened for a long time. But, you know, I'm a little, I have my soapbox about bottled water, but.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting because this week, you know, the whole purpose of this week and these conversations is to present all of these conversations from all of the different vantage points that, you know, that create contention, right? That creates some of this agitation between humanity and within society. Because tomorrow we actually have a water entrepreneur who will be on. And so he's a farmer. He's on land that his family has owned for generations. And so there's an aquifer under his land. And so he's been able to tap into that with a decent replenishing rate. So we'll have a conversation about that tomorrow. But I just want to say thank you because you've done a really good job of like, hold on, somebody said I would like to address underground springs, of which there are in abundance in our community. How might those be mapped and rerouted so that they become an asset? So that's kind of, someone asked a question about underground springs. So kind of what I was just talking about, aquifers or whatever. Do you want to touch on that or?
I probably shouldn't.
You're fine. I mean, listen, it's about education, right? So people need to understand the different nuances from all.
I just know it's very important to, like, if we're talking about taking from aquifers, then it's very important to be mindful about replenishing them. Like, and there are communities, like I visited a community in California, like kind of near Joshua Tree, where their utility is drawing from like a historic aquifer, but they're very mindful about making sure that they are replenishing back into it. So they have these giant basins that are open in the desert and they collect rainwater. And the basins are designed to let the water infiltrate back into the ground to replenish the aquifer. Because you can imagine if they're pumping out of it, you know, to get all of their water and not doing anything to replenish, then at some point you will reach the bottom of the tap. So yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Just that it is really important when you're taking, you also have to give back.
I say the replenishing rate is key, and you really need to know that for real, for real. But we'll get into that tomorrow. But today, as we wrap up, I want to give you some time to talk about. I know the students are like sitting on the edge of their chairs trying to figure out how they can get to Pittsburgh for free. So do you want to talk a little bit about the One Water Summit, and I'll share my screen, so folks can kind of see what.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, this is great. Yeah. Okay, so wow, not y'all being on the edge of your seats about Pittsburgh. And that's just funny to me because I'm from Philly, and I feel like Philly and Pittsburgh are just, we're on the opposite ends of the state, and and I'm sure we have feelings about them, they have feelings about us. Anyway, it is a lovely city. We went there last year. It's going to be a great conference, and it's a good water city. Pittsburgh actually sits at the convergence of three rivers, and it's a very cool place. And they have like the most bridges in the country or something like that. So you should look forward to going to Pittsburgh if you're interested in this conference. But the headline is that the U.S. Water Alliance organizes a conference every year called the One Water Summit. Something our organization is known for is the concept of One Water. We're trying to build a movement around the idea of holistic water management. Earlier, I was telling you guys about working for an integrated water utility, providing all of those services to a city. And so the idea is sort of similar to that we are considering all aspects of water, and we're not just looking at wastewater or drinking water, and we're separating them into silos, but that we're working together with people even outside of the water sector to make sure that we're aligned with community priorities, we're factoring in equity, we're providing justice, and that sort of thing. So it's basically a movement around holistic water management. And so that means we need a lot of diverse voices in the room. And so for that reason, we organize this conference to bring all those different people together. We have private companies come, engineering firms, nonprofits, grassroots organizations, artists, educators, all sort of people come to One Water Summit. And we have, it's like a normal conference in the sense that every day we have different sessions that are talking about different areas like climate change and water access and scarcity and, youth and workforce development and that sort of thing. So this is an opportunity to be a part of those conversations, but in addition to the kind of regular conference stuff, I feel One Water Summit is unique in that we really like to get a feel for the city that we're hosting in. So there will be like tours and site visits of One Water, technologies and innovations that are happening in Pittsburgh. And there will also be a lot of different events. Like we have a lot of networking events. I'm not going to lie, the Alliance throws a pretty good party. And it's just a really neat networking opportunity, and there will be a lot of different people as opposed to going to one of the more technical water conferences where normally you see a guy in a blue polo shirt, he's trying to sell you a pipe or a valve or something. So this is like way more fun and engaging, I feel. So the opportunity that we have available is that we're pulling together a cohort of HBCU students, not just from Tuskegee, but from other universities. And there will be 10 students in total, but there will be 2 from each university. And we'll convene them all at One Water Summit, and they'll attend as delegation members. So we also have these groups called delegations that all meet at Summit, and they're all working towards some particular goal, or they have some affinity with each other. And the delegation that this cohort will be a part of is called the Black Water Professionals Alliance. And it's a really great organization. And basically our mission is just to get more Black people in the water industry and make sure that we're retaining them and uplifting their work and making sure that they're elevating to the highest place that they can go. Water is known as an industry that tends to be less diverse. We're not really super well represented in the water sector. So, we're really taking a concerted effort to make sure that you guys know that this is a really interesting sector to work in. I feel you can do anything in water, whether you are a scientist or an engineer or an artist or a communicator, or, there's so many different things that you can do. You can study law and work in water. You can study math and work in water. You can work in chemistry. Like there's so many different avenues that you can take. Like I used to work with a team of graphic designers at our water department, and they're part of our sector. So I really want to get that message out there that really there is a place for everyone to work in water. And I just don't want anybody to grow up feeling like they were dissuaded the way that I was, and know that there are a lot of opportunities that are available to you. So anywho, Candace will provide more information about how you can be considered for the opportunity. Again, there will be 2 students that come from Tuskegee to actually attend the conference. It's fully paid for. It's not like any reimbursement or anything. So we'll take care of the cost up front, and then you'll get a stipend to take care of ground transportation and food and that sort of thing. We really wanted to make sure to eliminate all the barriers and just make sure that you could come and have a good time. And we're going to create an environment where you can find mentors and network with other students, but also other water professionals, and hopefully have a great time. So that's my plug.
Yay. Oh yeah, no, we definitely do a shameless plug session, so you do not hold back. But I want to open it up and remind you all, students, feel free to hop in. Do you all have any questions, anything that you just want to know about, maybe what to expect, what the world of water is, what your major is, and how it may intersect with water as a career? There are so many questions to ask in the world of water. And also don't forget to fill out that survey. So it's been dropped in the chat, so don't forget to do that. But now I want to take a step back and open it up. I see we've got Jessica, Lydia, Josephine. We got Lakaya, Chelsea, Quan. You guys have any questions? Tamika, Jason?
I do.
Yeah, go for it, Quan.
How y'all doing? My name is Quan. I'm a senior political science major at Tuskegee University. I just had a question that when she said you can be in law and study water, I did want to go to law school afterwards, but I've kind of lately, within the last 3 or 4 weeks, kind of got deeper into public policy. And so I guess this is kind of just down the middle for me. It kind of just made sense. I guess my questions would be, if I was to kind of pivot and make a hard pivot, I guess would be the word. If I was to make a hard pivot and to try to get into like public policy regarding water, especially like being from a bigger city, I didn't really necessarily understand that water being free was a privilege. As funny as that sound, like as crazy as that sound, like I just thought that that was how it goes everywhere, and to kind of realize and see that that's not how it goes everywhere, I feel like that needs to change. So I want to know like what kind of would be my next step if possible. Like what's the next thing to get into?
Let's see. So you're in undergrad now and potentially considering law school after you graduate?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I would say, number one, your very next step would be to make sure that Candace knows that you want to be considered to go to One Water Summit. I feel like that would definitely be a place where you can learn a lot about water policy, and you can meet, there are definitely lawyers that come to the event, and we'd be happy to connect you. Even if you don't end up going, then also like, I'll put my email in the chat, and like, if you guys want information or anything, like, please feel free to reach out. But yeah, I would say going to networking events like that is a really big opportunity, just like expanding your horizons to meeting professionals in the field where you have questions. Then there's so many people, like working professionals, who would love to share their knowledge with you, but you really just have to ask. So I would say like networking is a really big thing. And making sure that you're having informational interviews or touch points, and adding folks to your network that can help you sort of clarify your vision for what you want to do for the future. And then I'm just trying to think off the top of my head about other programs that would be good. I would say joining like a professional association, or at least seeing what events they have going on, or trainings or webinars where you can learn more. There are a lot of policy-oriented on like virtual events that you can jump into and hear about the issues that they're talking about. Also, I will say there is a coalition called Lawyers for Good Governance, and they are specifically a group of lawyers that have come together under this organization to talk about best practices for combating legislation that is not in favor of the environment. And so they put out like a whole paper about a couple of years ago, there was a Supreme Court decision that put our wetlands, like our nationally registered wetlands, in jeopardy. So they're no longer protected. And so there's guidance about what states can do to protect their wetlands that this group of lawyers put together. So I can put the link to that in the chat too. But yeah, I would say like finding those professional networks and finding groups that are sort of aligned and going to their events, I think is a really good first step for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Quan, I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to shamelessly plug our Integrative Public Policy and Development PhD program. And it's integrative specifically because it allows you to leverage all of the other colleges and schools on campus to kind of create your own PhD approach, and as long as it's obviously rooted in public policy. So, and even the difference between law and policy, really, I remember when I was in undergrad trying to make this same decision, and what someone told me was to understand that law is policy codified, right? So law is about the actual writing of policy, right? The legal language, understanding precedent, different situations or cases that have come before you that kind of set up the stage to where we are right now. And then policy is more on the kind of lobbying, going back and forth on the, I would say, more people oriented, like people understanding what you're doing versus you having conversations with just other lawyers and other judges and things like that. So it's really up to you and how deep you want to get to it. Me personally, I wanted to be a lawyer real bad, and I'm still thinking about law school, but I chose public policy because I knew I wanted to be involved in these conversations. whether I wrote the law or not. And I think public policy is a great way. And also keep in mind, just by being a human being on earth that exists and needs water to like live and survive, that you're also involved in this conversation as well, right? So like don't forget that. Like this, if you need water, water is a conversation that you should be in for sure. So thank you so much, Quan. That was a great question. We got about 5 more minutes, so I'm gonna give anybody one more question before Mara drops her shameless plugs and contact information. And then I got some music from another Tuskegee alumni to close us out. Let's see. Jessica. We got Norma, Chanel, Keisha. No more. Thank you, Lawyers for Good Governance. Thank you for dropping that more. All right. Well, if there are no more, you can also use a chat, but if there are no more questions, Amar, can you let us know any shameless plugs, any events that you all may have coming up that we should know about? Yes, everyone, don't forget to fill out the survey. And then if people want to get your information or reach out to you or connect with you, what should they do?
So I saw you put my email in the chat. Please, everyone, feel free. Like, if you have a question about anything, like it doesn't have to be related exactly to what I talked about today, then you can feel free to reach out. I think I'm trying to look on our website and see if we have any events coming up, because we do have like a lot of online trainings and webinars and that kind of thing, and many of them are open to the public. Oh, you know what I will say is, if you guys are on LinkedIn, then here, let me see if I can get it really fast. You should join if you're interested in water, remotely interested, then you should definitely join Blackwater Professionals LinkedIn group. Also, LinkedIn is a very powerful tool for networking, and you do have to put a lot into it to get a lot out of it, but I do feel like, you know, that's a really great way to connect with people. So please, you know, do the LinkedIn thing, but also join this group. I'm going to put the link in here. And then also any women, if you're interested in STEM or STEM related things, we have another group called SysSTEM, Black Women in STEM, that we do like monthly meetings, and it's like a closed group. So we're, you know, we just want people to feel like it's a safe space, and we meet and sort of commiserate with each other, but also lift each other up. And we actually have a series that's open, that's talking about building your professional brand. And that's going to be facilitated by a really wonderful woman, Black woman. And I think that's a great talk to come to. So I'm going to also share the link to this group called SysSTEM. And I can, let me see if I can find the Eventbrite link so that you can register for this event. It's called Owning Your Executive Presence with Bridget Battle. And she's going to talk about, you know, creating your professional image, and, you know, how to network properly and present yourself. So yeah, that's a really good one to go to for really anybody. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And I think we're out of time, and I appreciate you guys. This was fun. Like I said, feel free to reach out about anything if you need.
Perfect, Mara. Thank you so much. You've been awesome. Like, you are a wealth of information, and really, like, your journey is so unique. It's so beautiful. And thank you for, you know, just being the embodiment of, you know, Black women, art, and like the land and nature. Like, you are doing that even from an urban space, because people say we can't do it, but we can, and we're doing it. So thank you again. Round of applause, everyone, for the beautiful Miss Mara. Yay, yay. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Ashe. Mr. Hooks, do you have any closing remarks before we hop off? I have some announcements also for the students who are interested. So
No, just want to thank our guests and for the lovely conversation she provided and the information that she sent out. And just, also, it was good to hear that other people come from different backgrounds and get into this field of environmental science from different avenues. I ironically also came from an art background, and now I'm in ag. So you never know. I want everybody to know, you never know where your journey is going to end up and take you. So be persistent, follow your passions, and you should never go really wrong. And I want to thank everybody that came out. Really appreciate it. Also, I think, is Dr. Quarko still here?
I think so.
I don't know if he wants to come in and just give us some closing remarks, but if not, just let everybody know. Thank you so much. And Candace, you know how you do at the end.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I got some, we got to get music in, music out. But for the students that are interested, the application will open up this Friday at 2 p.m. and it will be closing on Saturday at 11:59. So it's a short window, but it's a big, big prize. So just participate, do your best. Let us know who you are and why you want to go. And yeah, if you have any more questions, you can definitely send me an email at cclark@tuskegee.edu and I can answer whatever you've got. But I'm gonna play this music to get us up out of here. Thank you all so much.
Woke up in the morning and I saw some alkaline. One chain, 2 chains, I cannot decide. Blue money, green money, I do not divide. Dirty money, clean, just as long as it aligns. Woke up in the morning and I saw some alkaline. One chain, 2 chains, I cannot decide. Blue money, green money, I do not divide. Dirty money, clean, just as long as it aligns. And my girl fine. Shining like some diamonds, Eliante. Inglewood hero, I've been linking up with Danye. Quiet for all that rapping and the capping about your gunplay. I'm the one that's pouring water, I might have to see about you. I prefer that you be solid. Hate to see you teeter-totter. Look, I'm the general, smoking on these minerals. Round my way, boy, it could get spiritual. I am not typical, I'm metaphysical. Stacking up these decimals, these digitals, residuals. Motion like an inner tool. I'm too hot, just lit a fuse. I grew up on pop, nail day, pop was pivotal. Woke up in the morning and I saw some alkaline. One chain, 2 chains, I cannot decide. Blue money, green money, I do not divide. Dirty money, clean, just as long as it aligns. Woke up in the morning and I saw some alkaline. One chain, 2 chains, I cannot decide. Blue money, green money, I do not divide. Dirty money, clean, just as long as it aligns.
And my girl a baddie. I've been doing pull-ups like what's bustin' with the addy. And she ain't got no issue. Still calling me daddy. I'm that nigga, I can't help. I'm just getting savvy with this pimping off the record. I speak money now, baby, and I talk it fluently. I've been indecisive, don't know if it's you or me. I can't pick a chain, cause I got like 2 or 3. Call my neck Michael Jordan, got 4, 5, or 6 rings. I'm that thinker, I'm a gardener, I'm a planter with them farmers. I've been cropping out just to get that picture smaller. Now my circle getting tighter, that shit a beauty mark. You gon' have to face the music. When it flood, we need an art. Is it dirty? Is it clean? Either way, it's getting messy. As long as we align on our goals, then it's fine. I'm taking my time, I'm feeling it out. I'm weighing my options, what it's about. I'm looking for commas, you looking for cloud. Run my check, don't run your mouth.
Woke up in the morning and I saw some alkaline. One chain, 2 chains, I cannot decide. Blue money, green money, I do not divide. Dirty money, clean, just as long as it aligns. Woke up in the morning and I saw some alkaline. One chain, 2 chains, I cannot decide. Blue money, green money, I do not divide. Dirty money, clean, just as long as it aligns.
Yay. Thank you all. Does anybody have any questions before I end the chat? Tomorrow, our conversation tomorrow will be beginning at 6:00 p.m. as well. And we will be featuring Tuskegee's very own, Macon County's finest, Moses Weaver of Energy H2O. If you be at Blue Seas for that dollar scoop day and you ever get water, that's him. He's all over the place, all the water on campus, right off Shorter. Definitely the water in my home, I can say for a fact, is Moses Weaver. So we'll be having a conversation with him tomorrow at 6. And yes, thank you all so much. Have a great evening. See you tomorrow at 6.